What's next? Cut up our game. It's the only way to get to the top.
Welcome, Power fans. We have made it back finally for the second half of season 4, the final season. I'll be covering all 5 episodes as we end to the end of this series. Before I begin, I just wanted to thank all of you for subscribing. When I first started doing these power reviews, I had maybe about 1,500, 2,000 subscribers. Now I'm over 8,000, so I'm hoping to get to 10,000 before the year is out. Thank you again for subscribing, and I'm glad you're here for this power content. So let's get right into it. The biggest thing that happened this episode is what? We see Diana beaten, left for dead, kicked in the stomach multiple times. So more than likely that baby is gone. And what is going to be the ramification for that for the rest of the episodes that we have? We have 4 episodes left now. Now that episode 6, The Devil's Playground, is concluded. And the devil was certainly busy. I think the biggest thing that's going to fall out from this episode is that just as it seemed that Agent Carter was finally on top of the world, he had everybody on the streets under his whim. Now I think he's going to be hit from so many different angles now, and that particularly Tariq and the Tajadas are going to unite to take down Agent Carter's crew, particularly with Felicia. Felicia is out of here. She's probably going to have one of the more horrible deaths we've ever seen in Power once this news gets out of what she did. The only thing that may delay it is if Diana is in a coma for any prolonged period of time. But because we only have 4 episodes, I really don't see that happening. I see her waking up in the hospital, telling Tariq what happened. And then at that point, they start putting things in motion to try and take down Carter's crew. One of the disappointments I had with this episode, particularly, is actually Carter's crew. Carter himself still remains very formidable. We saw at the beginning, Drew is not able to track him. He's on point as far as staying a step ahead of everybody in the streets. But his crew does not have the same acumen. Felicia was very sloppy to me just from how she conducted herself, relying on Diana, of all people, to commit a hit on a dangerous criminal like Zion was very far-fetched. And then we saw the other guy in Carter's crew get tied up with Drew, trying to have him make a kill in the infirmary. And already IAD is on their heels, sniffing around and looking into possible corruption. So they really don't seem too smart. I really thought he'd have a stronger backing behind him, for him to get this far in the game and to be corrupt this long and stay under the radar. You think, how can that happen when he has people like this running right under him? That really stood out to me. The other thing that was really ridiculous about his crew is that why would they bring Tate's brother along for that Russian attack that they did on their hideout, knowing that you're going to do dirt, knowing that you're going to steal money, knowing that you're probably going to execute anybody that's around that's going to prevent you from stealing money? Why would you bring somebody straight edge like Tate's brother around, knowing he's not going to go for that? That defies logic as well. Why they would have somebody like him closely involved. It's one thing to have him running errands like we saw him do in the previous 2 episodes. He had Tate's brother out there tailing Tariq and things like that. That makes sense. But taking him on important missions where you're going to be doing dirt, I can't fathom somebody as smart as Carter doing that. So it was a little bit of a letdown to see how sloppy his crew is. But like I said, we only have 4 episodes, so you have to have some kind of chinks in his armor to move the plot along. But that was hard for me to suspend disbelief, seeing that with his crew. Uh, the other thing that really stood out to me, really, besides that, is also the infirmary kill. That was kind of a waste of time to me, and it really just didn't make much sense. Drew is in prison, fine, I can buy that. But to have him commit a kill in the infirmary, and there happens to be no guards around, no cameras are on, I'm like, come on now, we're just kind of stacking bodies just to stack bodies. Didn't really do much for me either to see that type of activity as well. So that was another thing that was on the ridiculous meter that was pretty high, even for Power, for me to suspend disbelief. I did like Monet's scenes, particularly with Agent Carter, and also with Kane. I thought the scenes with Kane was even funnier. I mean, just the look on her face when Kane was just showing up, eating her takeout, just complete disgust with him. I really enjoyed the banter that we see with them. So that was funny seeing that. I think Monet has gotten, or Mary J. Blige is getting a little stronger in her acting as far as really encompassing the Monet character. I don't see where she's going to be going besides having a quest for vengeance. I think that's going to be her sole focus, at least for the next two episodes, is avenging what happened to Diana. Because as fault, with all the faults that Monet has, she wants to protect her family above anything. And when something happens to her family, she doesn't think logically, she just sees red. So I see her going completely after, if it's not Felicia named, Carter's whole crew until she gets retribution. I don't know yet whether she's going to make it to the end of the show. When I talk with Obi's character, uh, and if you haven't seen that, I'll put that in the description. Go back and check it out. His theory, as far as who's going to die, he definitely thinks Monet is not going to make it. When I talk with him about it, I lean more towards Monet's sister, Golden Brooks' character, Janet, possibly being the one to do it because, to me, with the this incident with Diana is just going to continue the cycle of violence and continue the cycle of feeling like she has to get empowered by, selling drugs on the street, get a crew together, go on the attack. It's a never-ending cycle with her. And really the only way to end the cycle, which Diana wants to do and to get away from her family, is really just to kill Monet. That's the only way that she's going to completely let go. They're her children, and anytime Monet comes back around bearing gifts, seeming a little contrite, they go right back under her thumb. And I think Janet is going to recognize that and feel like the only way that she can, quote unquote, save these kids is to remove Monet from the picture completely. So I'm still banking on Monet not making it to the end of the series, but I think she's going to cause a lot of chaos with Carter before she goes out after what happened with Diana. So that's a subplot to keep in mind. Regarding who I feel like is going to be hurt the most in these last couple episodes as far as character development and not really getting the screen time that we're used to from them, Noma really sticks out to me. I think Noma has suffered the most by being more exposed. Before Obi was doing all of her dirt, she seemed more intimidating, more in control. She was the one that was moving pieces on the chessboard. Now it seems like she's getting manipulated at every single turn, that she doesn't really have a grip on things like she did before. And that's causing her to talk more. She kind of whines a little bit more. She's had a couple good lines in this episode where she talked about to Kane. She told him, "I hate when you was it over deliver overpromise and underdeliver." Little lines like that I thought were, kind of remnants of the old Noma, but she's completely almost different from the character that we were first introduced to. She seems so intimidating, almost invincible to a degree. She had the international connection, which showed that her money and her influence goes really deep. All of that's kind of evaporating, and she's depending completely on Kane. So it's almost like a completely different character. And I almost feel like she's kind of taking the room a little bit. She doesn't seem like a threat anymore. And maybe that's deliberate because that will allow Effie to keep kind of chipping away um, at Noma's influence through Kane. And then I think eventually Noma is going to be taken out. I thought it was going to be Effie. I think Effie's going to put it in place for her downfall, but I think Kane is going to be the one to pull the trigger. I think that's starting to be very obvious now that he's going to have to choose between, gaining power through Noma or the woman that he truly loves and wants to be with, which is Effie. And I think point blank he's going to say to Effie if Noma goes after her, which I think she'll eventually do. After this whole Russian fiasco with them getting locked up and hit by Carter's team. So I think that's going to be happening not next episode, but I would say probably about episode 10. Noma's likely going to be getting out of here. I'm almost kind of certain of that at this point. Our character's kind of ran its course as far as what she can do at this point. Um, One big thing that I'm hopeful of, and I know it's kind of a pipe dream, I think Tate's brother getting killed. Of course, it opens the door that we're going to see Lorenz Tate's character, Councilman Tate, again, has to happen with his brother getting eliminated. But I really feel Power is unintentionally set the stage to bring back Tate's show. Remember, they were going to do a show on with Councilman Tate called Influence, which got canceled. Now I feel like you have the perfect setup to revisit that. Tate's out of the picture now. His brother gets killed mysteriously. He comes back to try and find out what happened to his brother. And we see that Carter is really too smart for any of the street characters to really get an upper hand on him. But Tate is different. Tate has the political edge that Agent Carter doesn't have. He's not a part of that world. And I think that additional component would be a perfect way for Tate to take out Carter, maybe even legally, maybe just through the political mechanisms that he has in place. That's a perfect way to, move him into the spotlight again, campaign wise. If he wants to run again for office, he's cleaned up the streets, he's taken care of a corrupt cop and the corrupt cop's entire division. That would be a perfect way to just go into, a power spinoff that they had before called Influence. I think that would be a great way to reintroduce and to show a different component of power that we haven't seen to this point. The problem is that we know that these shows are getting canceled because Starz is trying to save money. And the longer shows go on, the more you have to increase salaries and things like that. So the reason why I say it's a pipe dream is because we know Lorenz Tate is an established actor. He's going to require a certain amount of money, and that may be something that the Stars might not be willing to invest in. But I really think they're missing a big opportunity in not doing that. It's a completely different element from what we've seen with the previous Power shows, because as much as we love watching them, it's a guilty pleasure. They all kind of retread the same paths, whether you're watching Tommy's show, Tariq's show, the actors are different, but they're all covering pretty much the same thing. A potential Tate show, it's the political influence and political edge that we haven't seen before. And I think Lorenz Tate, with his capabilities as an actor, would knock it out of the park. So if anyone from Stars is watching, you set the stage perfectly. Really consider bringing back that show. Outside of that, I do think also Tate is going to be very instrumental in taking Carter down. He has to be, because once he finds out that he had any type of involvement in his brother getting killed, we're going to really see that devious edge come back from Councilman Tate, because we know it's there. We've seen it before. And Councilman Tate is really somebody that realistically can't be touched. I think it would kind of defy realism, even in the Power universe, to have somebody like Carter go after someone like Councilman Tate and try and kill him. I think that's not the way he's going to be willing to go, especially with IAD breathing down his throat. So I think that's an extra layer of protection for Tate's character eventually when he does come back, which is probably going to be next episode. With his brother getting killed, I wouldn't be surprised if episode, 7 opens with Councilman Tate at the funeral, or just, on the rampage trying to find out what happened to his brother. As far as another funny moment that happened, Effie's character, I mentioned her earlier. My favorite version of Effie is actually Scumbag Effie. When she was in the at school and going at Tariq and Diana, telling them that they're going to be terrible parents. She was already a baby mama, and Tariq ain't really committed to you anyway. Y'all are both trash. She was just going off. And classic Effie, I think that's the best version of her. I'm not really big on this whole conflicted conscience Effie. Now that she's almost been killed, she's trying to get out the streets now. She doesn't know what she wants to do. And I'm not really interested in that Effie. Scumbag Effie is my favorite Effie. So I hope we get a few more scenes of that with I guess probably, if it does happen, it's going to be just with maybe Noma or possibly Tariq, but probably not. I think she's going to show some sympathy now that Diana is probably going to be in the hospital for a prolonged period of time. So I don't think we'll see much of that scumbaggery directed at them, but I definitely see her talking like that to Noma once things continue along. So we'll see where things go with that. But I hope Effie kind of gets that edge back, because we need that version of Effie. We can't have her and Kane being soft. One of them got to be like the characters we were introduced to. Now, speaking of Kane, I don't know if this is being done deliberately. If it is, it's pretty subtle, which is not normally Power's strong point. His character seems to be getting a bit soft as well. One of the things that stood out to me with Kane was when that character Scoop kind of confronted him and pulled the gun on him. Now, the Kane that we have known from previous episodes, if you pull a gun on him and you don't get the job done, you are dead at that point. He does not show any mercy, to that type of disrespect for his life. But he didn't do that. He showed mercy this time and told him, if you ever pull a gun on me again, it'll be your last time. That's a totally different Kane than the one we've seen for the last 3 seasons and even the first half of season 4. So I don't know if it's being around Noma so much, or maybe it's still these lingering feelings for Effie. But this character is subtly changing, is not as hard as he used to be. So that is something to keep an eye on. And now that I'm think about that, even though it is family, so it's a different dynamic, but he also hesitated on pulling the trigger on Drew. Um, so maybe Kane's character is changing, and that's going to, possibly end up being his downfall. I talked about before that I see Kane killing Noma to save Effie at some point. But maybe it's not the happy ending where he does it in time and they can be together. Maybe he's already dying in his last moment. He kills Noma to save Effie, but he's still out of the picture and is going to die at that point. So, maybe his weaknesses, is showing is just, he's not as hard as he used to be. And that's going to end up being his downfall. So that's something to keep an eye on with Kane as he continues to try and manage his feelings, between Effie and Noma. So overall, not the strongest power episode, definitely not the worst. I would say probably I'm in the B- range with how this episode was. I definitely want to see how they go further with Tariq and Diana as far as his mindset changing, because as he said, his goal for the remainder of the season is to go from being a distributor to being a supplier, which means he has to be more ruthless, more calculating, and really maneuvering and manipulating everybody to get him in that position. We see he's already doing that with Anya. She's already having a little doubts about him because he, brushed her off when they were at the club. So that bond might be a little bit shaky. She might end up revealing a little too much to Noma, which can put Tariq in trouble if Noma finds out that he's, screwing over her daughter. So I really want to see how much more parallels they show with Tariq and James St. Patrick, because already Tariq is mostly wearing black now. So we know he's in kill mode at this point. So as we used to see with Ghost, we saw that initially with Zion when they took him out. I'm starting to think his signature pose is standing over people and delivering the headshot. He's been doing that a lot. Did that with Angela's, what was that, Angela's nephew, and now did that with Zion. So we've seen Ghost do that before, but with Tariq, it's a little bit more prominent. So I'm starting to think that's his signature pose or his signature kill shot. So I want to see if we're going to get a little bit more parallels between him and Ghost as we head toward the finale. There was a little bit of that I saw when he was holding Diana, even though Diana was dead. It did remind me of how Ghost was holding Angela in her last moments. So we'll see if we see more of that as we head to the final episodes. I'm still holding out hope that Ghost shows up. I really think we need that for true closure with this series. If it does happen, they've completely kept it under wraps. I haven't heard anything from any of my usual channels, my media friends or anything. So if they filmed anything with Amari Hardrick, they've really kept it under wraps. Like nothing has come out whatsoever. But I do think they need to have that confrontation. I'm not one of those people that think that Ghost is still alive. I think it would be one of those hallucination flashback things that we've seen before that Tariq has even had with Kanan. So I want it to be something like that where he finally, I guess, either makes peace with Ghost or finally at least understands the moves that he's made or had made before he passed away. Now that he's in that position now where he's trying to get to where Ghost was, where he's at the top of the food chain, that he can really understand now where his father was coming from. So I hope we get that in the final episode. I really think we need that for closure. As far as whether Tariq is going to make it, I still really don't know. There are fates that are worse than death, as we've seen with Snowfall. So I wouldn't rule it out with Tariq, going to prison. I do think he's going to pay a heavy price for getting to the top of the food chain if he does. Braden's running around like a crackhead at this point, all in the videos, jumping up on stage with his girlfriend's performance and all that. So I really don't see Braden possibly making it. I really don't see him jumping into the Tommy role like we thought he was going to do. I don't see that at all. Maybe they do a swerve, and maybe Effie ends up being the Tommy type because she's really the only one that has that mentality, even though she wants to go back to school. Um, and then the big question, who is Tariq's Angela? I talked about that before. I think previously I thought it may be Effie. I'm kind of going against that now. I definitely don't think it's Diana. I think it may be Lauren. We haven't seen Lauren. I know she's in witness protection, but to me, she wasn't killed for a reason. And that seems to be the one that he was fixated on while she was here. That makes the most sense. But still, my issue is, do we have enough time to really flesh all that out with 4 episodes left? We shall see. But I'm going to conclude it there. Let me know your favorite moments from this episode. How satisfied were you with it? Was it a thumbs up? Is it a thumbs down? Are you worried about how things are going to transpire over the next 4 episodes that we have left? Just to let you guys also know, I'll be covering every single episode this season, normally with the recaps posting a little bit after the episodes make their midnight premiere on Stars. So probably sometime in the 1 a.m. hour if you're on the East Coast time. If not, check it out in the morning after you subscribe. It will be up there. So thank you again for all of you that subscribed, that got my numbers up, trying to get to 10,000 before the end of the year. I'm a little bit over 8,000 subscribers now. Appreciate all you guys tuning in to this power of content. And I'll be back to cover episode 7 next week. Take care and enjoy your weekend.